So welcome to another episode of Self-Love Your Way There. And before I get into today's topic, I want to address the elephant in the room. Well, actually, probably two elephants in the room. The first one is, I know it's been a very long time since I've been here, since you've heard me, since I released an episode, and there's good reason for that. I've been focusing on some things in my own life, and I've also been reworking on some things that you're about to see very soon. It's not quite time for me to reveal them, but you'll be seeing them very, very soon. So I needed to take some time to focus on those other elements. I have been well, been getting even more well, and just been focusing on some things I want to put out. So that's why you haven't seen me in a while, but I promise you I won't be taking as much of a break going on from here on forward. The second elephant is, if you're watching this live, or if you're watching this, you're viewing a recording of the visual of this, you see my beard and my mustache are red, and actually my eyebrows are still red. This is left over from Halloween. This is part of my Halloween costume. I dyed my beard and my mustache and my eyebrows for my costume, which was rocking, by the way. But I thought it'd been washed out by now, but it has not. It was way more red than it is now. It's kind of coming out just to the edges. But if you're looking like, whoa, his beard is red. Yes, it is. And that's the reason. So now that we've addressed the elephants in the room, I'm really glad to be back with you, because I want to continue and finish the conversation we had in the last episode, where I was talking to you about how traditional spirituality made me sick. And just to recap really quickly about that episode, because you can go and listen to it. It's on the podcast, it's in the video archives. You can go and hear it or watch it or however you want to view it. But I talked about in the episode about how the soul, as souls, when we come into human form, we come into duality. And so that means there's two sides to things, and usually two sides, sometimes there's more. But for the soul's consciousness, the soul is love. And when it comes in, you come in as a human being, that consciousness gets kind of, I don't want to say split because they're not separate, but they kind of get delineated into two sections. One is being loving. The other is being loved. And what I talked about in that last episode is what traditional spirituality usually focuses on is how to be loving and how to be of service. How to be loving in the world and how to be of service to the world and to others. But what it doesn't teach you how to do usually is how to be loved, how to receive love from the world, from others, and from yourself. And that, in receiving love, is crucial to our wellness. Our body literally needs to receive love daily, just like it needs to receive food and water in order for it to be healthy. And I didn't know how to receive love. And I was out of balance because I knew how to be loving, but I didn't know how to receive love. So that was what I talked about in the last one. And that was one of the aspects of how I walked through the world being starved of being loved, because I didn't know how to go through the world and how to operate out of the part of my consciousness that allows us to be loved. And that part of the consciousness is the ego. Now, traditional spirituality mostly has taught us to suppress the ego, that the ego is something bad, or something that the ego is what gets in the way. And I'll have to do a whole nother episode about really what we're really actually talking about is your wound, your trauma. But your ego is actually the part of you that is responsible for your human self, your human needs, and your ability to be loved and to receive love. So I talked about that in the episode. I go deeper in that in the last episode. You can watch that, listen to that, whatever your pleasure. But in this episode, I want to share this last part that connects with this. And that is being so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good. Now, I used to hear the elders when I was growing up in the church say this all the time. I grew up in the Black church, and I used to hear them say this all the time, being so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good, but I didn't really understand what it meant and I didn't understand what it meant even before I got sick. I didn't understand what it meant until after I had my near-death experience. And my intuitive gifts began to open after my near-death experience, and I began to work in them. So I was doing readings initially when I first started, and I was offering psychic readings. And I was doing fairs. I did fairs all throughout the Midwest. It was all over the place. And doing psychic readings at these fairs. And I would see sometimes, depending on how large the fair was, sometimes I would read 100 people a day or somewhere close to that. And so I would see a lot of people. And there was this pattern that was happening with the people that I was seeing, whereas a lot of them were very much into spirituality. They were into meditation and yoga. They were vegans. They had crystals all over their homes. They had, they knew about the chakras. They were doing, psychic development work. A lot of them were psychics themselves, and a lot of the other psychics that I was working with at the fair fell into the same type of thing. And they were coming to me, and a lot of times what they were saying was basically, I just want to know when this all will be over. I just want to know when this will all be over so I can just go back and I'll never have to come here again. And they were talking about not come to the fair, but come to life itself. Like, when will their life be complete? Or when will the lessons be learned and their lessons will be finished, so that they can graduate and no longer have to be in this life experience anymore and ascend, right? And I was seeing how very popular this message was of, not this message, but this narrative of, I want to hurry up and learn my lesson so I never have to come back here again. And what also was very popular was these people that were very spiritual, very, they crossed off all the stereotypical things that we lodge under that umbrella of spiritual, right? Burning incense, had the candles, crystals, chakra meditations, seeing auras, all of that type of things. They were these type of crowd. But they were unhappy, and they did not like their lives, and they really did not like life itself. And I was really confused by that, because these people had some of the greatest gifts I had ever seen. Like, some of these people were able to do things psychically and mystically that you wouldn't believe if I told you. Like, you would have to see it to believe it. There are some things literally that I have seen people do that you would not believe unless you saw it. It was that magical. It was that otherworldly. It's that profoundly just mind-blowing. And just like, almost like you are like magic, like the magic incarnate. And yet you feel like life is something, it was a punishment. That's really what it felt like. It felt like people were coming and they were believing that life itself was a punishment, and they wanted to be released from this punishment and go back to the other side, which was the reward. And I remember going to my guides and asking them about this, because I was very confused, because to me, spiritual people are supposed to have it all figured out at that time. And that's what I believed at that time, the younger me, that they were supposed to have it all figured out. And they were supposed to have, once you could talk to angels and see auras, the life was supposed to, that's the key. That was what was supposed to break life open. It's that you've been enlightened, you're ascended here on the planet. Why do people not enjoy their lives? And what I began to understand the more and more I began to do the work, and it was actually part of the reason why I stopped doing readings and I started doing this type of work, was that they were learning, all of the stuff about being in heaven, right? The stuff that raises you into the other dimension, right? The meditation and the walking in nature and the talking to angels or even aliens and all of that. I mean, the whole gamut. But what they didn't know how to do was speak up for themselves. They didn't know how to honor their boundaries. So they constantly felt violated and disrespected in their lives. they didn't know how to say no. So their life wasn't filled with their yeses. It was filled with all these things they didn't want to do. They were overwhelmed and overexerted. They were tired and exhausted. These people were sad because they weren't living the life they really wanted to live. And this is what I found again, is that you can be so heavenly minded that you're no earthly good. And I understood it, right? We're so focused on this that we're not actually focusing on the things that allow us to have a delicious experience on earth. And what I learned in my near-death experience is you're supposed to have a delicious experience on earth. Like, that's what we come here for. The soul is not coming here as a punishment. It is not being sent here to learn lessons so that it can prove itself worthy of ascending. Because remember, you are already worthy. There's nothing you're here to prove. There's nobody up there or out there or behind there that has some type of ledger that's checking off to see, you know, whether or not you've completed these things and whether or not you've done enough to be worthy to belong to the next level. You are all of these levels all at once, and you're worthy, and your worthiness is never diminished, and it's never been depleted, and it never will be diminished or depleted. And there is nothing to prove. There is only things to enjoy. You came here for the joy of it. Now, this episode is about me, but I wanted to set up this with what I learned, because this was an aha for me. And I realized, this is me. These people are reflecting back to, they're being a mirror reflection of me. In my spiritual journey, I had learned all those things. I had learned how to meditate. I had learned how to connect with my guides. I had learned how to, spend time in nature, be silent. I was really deep into forgiveness work, which I'm a very big proponent of, by the way. So I'm not knocking any of these things, but I was very big into all of these other things that was, my mind was very much focused on heaven, right? On the spiritual, that I didn't know how to operate fully in the physical. And I didn't know how to speak up for myself. I had a very hard time saying no. And so I would always be taking on way too much. And I would always be taking on things that I really didn't want to do because I didn't want to say no and hurt somebody else's feelings. But I was hurt because I was doing stuff that I didn't want to do. And then I had a whole plate full of things that I didn't want to do. So my life didn't taste good to me. It felt like I was trapped. I didn't know how to really, the love I was giving to other people, I didn't know how to give to myself. I didn't know how to shower myself with that. I was a people pleaser. I was a doormat. I let people walk all over me. I didn't have structure. And this is another part of the ego. The ego is a part of us that really helps us get order and structure in our lives. The ego does that. The ego part of our consciousness does that. So it's about kind of order and structure, and the higher self is more about flow. You need both. So it's not about either or. Remember, these are two halves, like two sides of the same coin, but you need both of these to have the wholeness of your soul's consciousness. So you don't just need flow, you need order and structure as well. And you don't just need order and structure, you need flow. But what ends up happening with most of people that are in traditional spirituality is you're only taught flow. And so you don't really have structure, which is why a lot of spiritual people don't really manifest their dreams very well. They have hard times with money. I'm speaking, this used to be me. I was broke most of the time or barely getting by. They have hard times with really being disciplined and seeing their dreams into fruition, because your dreams oftentimes they don't take necessarily, I'm not talking about hard work, but it takes you having a focus and a disciplined plan so that you can continue taking steps towards the dream, right? Instead of just getting distracted, which was something I used to do all the time. Like, I want this, and oh, look at this shiny thing over here. Let me do this. And oh, this shiny thing over here. And I'd get all these things going and nothing would ever get done. And the ego part of your consciousness is the part that allows you to focus and allows you to put structure and order in your life so that you can have things like that, so that you can do that. But this was kind of the thing. What I was finding was I had learned all of these things, right, that made me very aware of the mystical. It made me aware of that there was more to what we were being told. There was more than what we could see with these two eyes. And that was great, but it wasn't helping me have a really delicious life. And that was really why I said before that I stopped doing readings, because I wanted to teach people what it really took to help you have a delicious life. And instead of you having to come to see me every 2 weeks to find out, how the situation was going to turn out, I wanted to teach you how to make that situation turn out the way you want it to turn out. Right? How to stand in your consciousness and in your vibration so that you receive the good that you desire, or even better, or how you can stand in your consciousness and your energy of your soul and let that go and let your soul guide you to what is the best, right? So anyway, I wanted to teach people that. I wanted to teach people how to make a delicious life. And what I was seeing was we weren't really learning that traditional spirituality was teaching how to be loving and the things that we need to know. We need to be loving and we need to be loved. And we were learning very well how to be loving and how to be of service to others. But when that's all you learn, you're constantly pouring your energy out and you're not receiving energy in. So you'll feel usually disrespected, disempowered, you'll feel exhausted, you'll feel overexerted, you'll feel unhappy because you're helping other people meet their dreams and you're helping other people with whatever they want, but you're not getting helped and your dreams aren't getting met. You're helping other people get their needs met, but your needs aren't getting met. And that was really one of the big things, is like the ego helps you focus on your needs and what you need to get met. The higher self helps you meet the needs of others as well and make sure that your needs are not hurting other people. And you need both. You need a balance of both. But the higher self in spirituality just gets over amplified. It just gets over amplified, and the ego is getting suppressed. So the stuff that allows you to have a delicious physical experience and the stuff that will allow me to have a delicious physical experience, I wasn't learning. And since I was on the path of spirituality and I was really cared about that, and first I was really into the church, and then I got into spirituality and metaphysics. But there wasn't, I can't tell you, did I ever have, I don't remember a workshop or a sermon or any type of church thing where they talked about how to set boundaries, or where they talked about how to really focus on your dreams, or how to really love yourself and receive love and get your needs met. Make sure your needs are met. How to say no, how to speak up for yourself, how to own your own space in a room, right? These are all parts of love as well. These are all parts of the soul being that we are on this planet as well. And we need that to experience the wholeness of ourselves, so that we experience the spiritual aspect and the physical, so that we're well in the spirit and well in the physical life. And that's not what I was learning. And that is what made me sick, because I was very imbalanced. And wholeness is wellness, by the way. So, I'm a metaphysical teacher, and I speak about energy and consciousness. And I know that energy and consciousness are the roots of all things, including wellness and illness. And wholeness is wellness, being whole, like embodying the wholeness of the essence of your soul. And so for one, your soul's consciousness, so that's your soul is consciousness and energy, which is both are love, right? So the soul is the consciousness and the energy of love. Well, the consciousness of love is ego and higher self. It is being loving and being loved. And when you're not in the consciousness or energy, when one of those is not being nourished, when one of those is not being expressed, when one of those is being suppressed, you won't be in wholeness. You'll be in, my words are slipping me here, but you're just not in wholeness. You'll be divided. That's what I want to say. You'll be divided. And that was what was happening. That was what was happening for me. And I was suppressing my ego because I was told to be nice. I was told to be sweet. A spiritual man is to be very kind and sweet. So that person just did something to you that completely dishonored your boundaries, and you just don't say anything about it. And you just forgive them immediately. But I went around feeling dishonored and violated and disempowered and unhappy. And then I was exhausted because I wasn't speaking up for myself and taking on too much. And I was overwhelmed, and no wonder my energy just was not well. And your energy has to be well for your body to be well. Your body needs well energy for it to be well. So that was that was the second part of what made me, how traditional spirituality made me sick, was there's this real focus on being very heavily minded, but there's not enough focus on being earthly good. You need both. You need to connect. Yes, connect with your guides. Absolutely. My work with my guides has just been a blessing in my life. It's how I've been able to show up as Jerome now. Yes, meditate. I love meditation. It's one of the best things that I believe you can do. Yes, do yoga. Yes, learn how to see auras if you want. Yes, do all of those things that will connect you with the dimension of heaven, right? With the other side, the higher realm, or whatever you want to call it. But know that that's not your purpose here. If your soul wanted to be in that all the time, it would not have manifested in physical form. It would have stayed in the spiritual. It would have stayed in that dimension. It came into this physical dimension for a purpose, not to learn lessons, not to prove a point, but to enjoy itself in physical form, to enjoy being physical, to enjoy this life. And this is something that I learned a lot, like, just to put another point to this, when I was doing mediumship work. One of the things that would happen a lot when I would connect with somebody's loved one on the other side, and they would be talking to their family member that was with me, that wanted to speak to them, they always wanted to impart this message to let them know that they are fine, number one, but number two, this is the place to be, that they're enjoying themselves over there, but they are also chomping at the bit to get back here somehow. This is the place to be. The soul wanted to be here. It didn't come here by punishment. It didn't come here by demand. It came here by choice, and it was a joyous choice at that. So the key to having a joyous experience is to operate in wholeness, to not just be so heavenly minded, but to be earthly minded too, to learn how to make money and be good with money, to learn how to speak up for yourself, to learn how to have boundaries so that your relationships feel fulfilling to you and that you don't move around this world feeling disempowered, to have structure and order in your life so that you can move towards your dreams in a timely fashion. Like all of these things, right? So earthly minded and heavenly minded, not either or. And a lot of traditional spirituality is very much about leaving the earth. Like, the earthly existence and this humanly existence is not why you're here. Leave it all and just go into the spirit. And what I've learned through being on the other side and by talking to souls on the other side through mediumship is that's just not true. Yes, it can be a really trippy and delicious experience to really connect in as much as possible with the spirit, but you won't be any earthly good. And this is why a lot of spiritual teachers, by the way, and if you're a spiritual teacher listening to this, you know, and if you, you know, and if it's not you, you know somebody, you know, this is true. This is why a lot of spiritual teachers and a lot of psychics and intuitives and things like that, this is why they struggle very hard with money. The people who deserve to have abundance and financial wealth the most struggle with it the most. And why I say they deserve to have it is because people who are empaths and intuitives and coaches and healers, their whole innate beingness is to be of service to others. So when they get a lot of money, they serve others more. right? Versus some people whose innate ability is to be of service to the self. So when they get more money, they are in service to the self. We have a lot of examples of that. But these people are literally getting, they have gifts, and they have, I told you, I've seen people that can do things that are beyond understanding unless you see it. And there are people who have miraculous gifts, healing gifts, transformative gifts that can only reach a small amount of people because they don't have the finances. And I remember a mentor of mine telling me, like, Jerome, you have so much wisdom and you have such a gift, and nobody's ever going to see it because you're struggling. And this was really true. And if we'll have to talk about that at some point, about money. But this is the part that helped me kind of shift my experience with money, was learning how to operate more from my ego, learning how to amplify it more instead of suppress it so much, so that I could be in a wholeness of the consciousness of my soul. So that was it. I wanted to come on here and kind of share with you that being heavily minded, being so heavily minded made me know the earthly good. And not only did it make me know earthly good, but it made me sick. And learning how to be in the balance of both, being heavily minded and earthly minded, is what is making me more well. And I think that is the call for spirituality now. I think we're being called to evolve spirituality, to take it to another level, to shift it to where it involves the two. I don't do a lot of projections, like intuitive or psychic projections. It was never really my thing, but I can say this, I will do this. I do see a big shift in this in the next 5 years. I think there's going to be a lot of people, the people who will be the stars, if you will, or that will have the most success in spirituality, and they will reach the most people and have the most impact, positive impact. Let me make that very clear. I mean, positive impact. That will have the most positive impact are the people who are able to balance the two, whose message and work or offerings or services balance the two. They balance the being heavenly minded, and they balance you being earthly minded, because that's kind of what's been needed. We've not been in our wholeness. Most spiritual folks have been in balance. They've been very, very, very much in the spirit, in the selflessness, in the being loving, and not enough in the body, in the physical, in the being loved. And that's what helps you have, I'll end with this. The key to life being very delicious is you feeling loved, is your ability to feel really, really loved. And you have to have your whole consciousness in order to do that. So until next time, I love you all. Now, please go love yourself. Bye.